Welcome to this YouTube version of our Highland League Weekly results panel, which is taken from our main Highland League Weekly show over on the Press and Journal website, which has highlights of 2 games and a feature this week. To access that, though, you need to be a subscriber to the Press and Journal. You can do that at the moment for the low price of £1 for your first 3 months, and that will get you access to this week's show as well as all the future shows we do. But if you just want to hear the chat about the weekend's games, and there were 8 matches in the Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup first round on Saturday, then you're in the right place. The first game we're going to discuss was Nairn County 0, Bankside 6. A game where Nairn County weren't great, but Bankside showed all of their attacking firepower. Callum?
Very much so, and after sort of back-to-back defeats, that was a lot more like what Bankside would be looking for. Again, I mean, some of the goals they scored, I mean, especially I thought the 4, I mean, Lachie McLeod's a good finish as well in the first half, but the 4 in the second half, Marks Alexander's, Ian Vigers, and then both of Chris Antonatz's, I thought they were all excellent finishes, or the creation of them was very good, certainly. I mean, it was really away from home, and what on paper I thought looked quite a tricky proposition for Bankside. That was an emphatic outcome. I mean, you look at the other side of it, and for Nairn, I just thought it was like lacklustre, all like, other than that wee spell at the start of the second half, it was lacklustre all over the pitch, really. And like, they couldn't, I think, or certainly I think anyway, when you look at Nairn's team, their best players are in the forward areas, but they just couldn't get like Andrew Gregg, Scott Lyle, Matthew Wright, Gary Kerr, these players involved often enough, whether it was trying to play sort of through the thirds or whether they went more direct. The ball was either never getting to them, or when they did go direct, they weren't winning first and second balls, and it was just like Bankside picking things up and coming back at them, or just keeping the ball for a while, as was their want. And I could see why Ross Tokley was as annoyed as he was. And then in the second half, I thought once the third goal went in, the towel was thrown in really, and it was pretty easy for Bankside. So I think you sort of listen to Ross as well, and saying he doesn't know what he's getting from week to week, and you know, it's quite challenging for Nairn in that regard, and difficult to know probably what team to put on the pitch as well, because they have got a squad there and they can rotate, but when you're getting the sort of inconsistency Nairn have had this season, it's hard to know sort of what combinations is maybe best to try.
Aberdeenshire Cup final this weekend on Sunday for Bankside against Huntly. Huntly, another team that can score a lot of goals, so we're due a sort of 0-0 and then drab sort of penalty shootout possibly.
Thanks, Ryan.
But I mean, if just looking at Bankside, if you're Josh Winton and Paul Austin, the co-managers at the moment, difficult team to pick.
Oh, I'd be struggling to pick my starting 11 for the cup final. You'd be tempted to go with the guys that have done so well for you there on Saturday, but yeah, there's other very good players waiting in the wings for a chance. But yeah, I mean, D were outstanding for me. As poor as Nairn might have been, the quality of the goals that Bankside scored were top draw for me.
Mm-hmm. As you're saying about the sort of picking a team, and I mean, when you've won like that, I'd imagine it is very tempting to go same again, but then you factor in, Paul touched on it a wee bit in his interview, but the substitutes, like Andy Hunter came on and was really good. Chris Antonatz's scored twice. Michael Phillipson was a sub, and he usually starts, and Mark Gilmore was absent, so you know, there's Andy Hunter and Chris Antonatz you could see starting anyway, but Mark Gilmore and Phillipson especially are two that usually start, so that's certainly a good problem to have for Bankside, I would say, trying to name an 11 for Sunday.
If there was a moment of controversy in the game, it was potentially the penalty the Bankside were awarded when Kane Winton headed the ball off Fraser Dingwall's arm. What were your thoughts on
that? I can understand why the referee Stuart Randall has given it, because Fraser Dingwall's arm is sort of outstretched a bit, but at the same time, I think it's pretty harsh, really, in that, like, the distance is so close, and I don't think it's like one of them where Fraser Dingwall's watching the ball all the way and he's just sort of going like, I'm going to stop this. I think it's sort of the motion of like running as he is to try and cover, and it strikes his arm. I just think when it's so close like that, it's on the harsh side. I mean, I should say as well, do I think that decision would have impacted the overall outcome of the game? No, because over the 90 minutes, Banks of D were superior. But at the same time, it's like, if it stays 0-0, maybe the game does change a bit. But I just thought, you'll maybe disagree with me, but I thought at that range, and it's not like his arm's really up, it's just out a bit from his side. I thought it was a bit harsh.
I agree with everything Callum says, but I would still give the penalty. Just because his arm is out like that. Yes, he's not really looking at it, but that is an unnatural position for your arm to be like that.
It's a harsh world.
Well, that's it. And the referee's not having the benefit that we have of looking back.
Well, this is the thing.
They're having one look. They see an arm sticking out. They're not going, oh, was he looking at the ball? They just see the arm out and it's blocking a ball coming across goal.
Well, you are right. And the thing is,
thanks, Callum.
It's worth quantifying as well as at the time during the game, because you don't have it so much because of the position of the camera, but sitting in the stand at the other side, everyone in the stand, nobody had a clue what had happened because of the sun. So it's only seeing.
Okay then, another good win there for Buckie Thistle following their win in the Aberdeenshire Shield in midweek.
Aye, well, Lewis McKinnon sort of has been saying that November could be a really critical sort of month in their season. I mean, they got through in the Shield to the quarter-final. They're through now in the Highland League Cup to the quarter-final, and aside for the league, they then play Clydebank at the end of the month in the third round of the Scottish Cup. So there's a lot to play for, two trophies, and also the Carrot are trying to get into the fourth round of the Scottish Cup. So, and I think that's 4 wins in the bounce now in all competitions. So they're finding a good bit of form and momentum at a good time. And I thought over the piece, they deserved that victory against Clark. I think they carried Clark did have a couple of moments certainly, but I think Buckie carried the greater threat throughout. They got into a lot of good positions and ultimately was taking through their chances. And I think the second goal, especially for Liam Harvey, his first for Buckie, was a tremendous finish from that angle.
I can't disagree. But that's the first time I've seen Buckie for a few weeks. The difference, they haven't been the same relentless force of last season, but then why would they be? They've lost a couple of crucial key players, and obviously there's been a change of managers. A lot's happened over the summer, but they are finding a bit of momentum again, as Callum touched upon, and that's a very good result because Clark have been going well themselves this season. I don't think there's anybody will be unhappy at winning 2-0 and moving on to the quarter-finals.
I mean, bottom line is Cup Fitba. It's about getting through, and can this week in both the Shield and the League Cup, Buckie have done that, so credit to them.
Okay, where shall we go next then? From the 6 ties remaining, Brechin City, Inverurie Locos, 2-1 to Brechin in the end. That one, Ryan Ferguson and Dale Robertson with second half goals for Brechin before Mark Suter pulled a goal back. However, Robertson then got a straight red card for a clash with Suter. What happened there? Callum, he was then sent off again, wasn't he, for having a go at the linesman in the aftermath?
Aye, well, it was the linesman that alerted the referee to sending him off because the referee didn't see the incident. We should have it on screen for you now, and you might need to watch it a couple of times to see, but they're sort of going back and forth, a bit of sort of, I think, handbags really, but then when Dale Robertson, I think, ups the ante a bit, and it's hard to see whether it's an elbow or a forearm or what it is, but Mark Suter goes down, the linesman sees it, red card. They were both at it, but I think Dale Robertson's just maybe pushed it a wee bit far, and you're never sure, even if the referee's obviously not seeing it. That's what the assistants are there for, and he spotted it, and it's a red card, and with getting the double red, he'll have, I mean, they're all competition specific now, the suspension, so he won't miss league games, but he'll get quite a hefty ban for the the League Cup, I would imagine, give it sort of, you know what, like, the authorities take a dim view on things, but aside from that, I think Brechin would be pretty happy because they did make a few changes to their team, a couple of new faces and things involved, and they've come through it. And for Inverurie, I think it's same old story of recent weeks a wee bit in terms of, I think Dean Donaldson was happy enough with the general play and possession in the areas they got into, but they're not either creating enough chances or taking enough of them in cup ties like that against a good Brechin side. He'll be up against it. And I was going to say, I mentioned the new faces for Brechin. I think there has been a feeling for them in the last maybe month, 6 weeks. They would like a couple more in to try and bolster them in terms of the league challenge, and they've brought in Lewis Milne from Stirling Albion on loan, who's been Scottish League midfielder all his career with Montrose, Raith Rovers, Cowdenbeath, Forfar, which looks a good signing coming down a level. And then Scott Bright, who's a young defender from St Johnstone. So it looks like, obviously this was a cup weekend, but even if you go back to the league, it looks like Brechin and Brora, they're both sort of taking steps to try and be as strong as possible going into this winter period. Yep.
Fraserburgh 2, Forest Mechanics 0. Now, the big flashpoint in this one, certainly Steve McDonald, the Forest Mechanics manager, was irate about it, to say the least. Josh Bolton scores the opener for Fraserburgh, but in the build-up, there's a bit of a coming together between Scott Barber and Corey Patterson, the Forest goalie.
I think we've got different
opinions, so you can start.
I'm going to be accused of being a homer here. You
homer.
I don't think it's a foul. I think the ball is genuinely there to be won. It's not. The goalkeeper's coming out like this. Scott Barber's sliding in, but it's not like he's going in studs first. I think it might be the other leg behind him if he's caught the goalkeeper.
Does he win the ball?
No,
I think they both get there at exactly the same time when we watch it back.
We should have it on screen.
You can make your own mind up.
I would say, I agree with you. The ball is there. It's a 50-50. Scott Barber has got every right to slide in. I wouldn't disagree with you at all with that. But I think Corey Patterson gets to the ball first, and I think Scott Barber does dislodge the ball or does get onto the ball, but I do think I think the goalkeeper's got it first, and I do think Scott Barber has caught the goalkeeper and then come onto the ball. Would be it's one you could argue all day about. The bottom line is the referee Jamie McConney and his assistant have given it. You think it should have stood. I don't. I think it's one of them as well where 9 times out of 10 it would be given as a foul, and I think is the way games are refereed now, players, I think if you look at the body language of the players, I think they almost expected, probably everyone except Scott Barber, to be fair, expected the whistle to go. And I think if he gives the foul, in my opinion, I don't think he would have many Fraserburgh complaints if he blows for a foul before Josh Bolton puts the ball in the net. I think, rightly or wrongly, that's the way the game is. And I can see why Steve McDonald is unhappy. I do wonder, though, if that decision was maybe in the referee's head as to whether he had got it right or wrong, because later in the first half there was an incident where it looks like a net-bound header is blocked in the line by Mark McLaughlin with his arm, and then Corey Patterson gathered it. And I do just wonder if I'm not convinced he maybe has the best view of it, but I do wonder if the referee has maybe thought, not sure about the first goal, so I'll maybe referees will probably tell you that isn't in their thinking, but I do just wonder, because it looked, from the footage I've seen, it looked like Mark McLaughlin, despite his best efforts, I think, to get his sort of chest to it did look like an arm that stopped a certain goal. And actually, aside from all that sort of talking points, it's actually a really good tie, this. I think both teams created some decent chances and had a go, and it was a sort of good advert for cup football that you'd hope, and obviously Fraserburgh have ended up going through. And then the other thing away from all that, the sort of news, if you will, Forest have managed to bring back Ryan McRitchie, and he played on Saturday. Went to Brora in August, and his game time sort of been limited, and few clubs were sort of after him, but Forest have managed to bring him back to Mossop Park, and I think that's an excellent signing for them, because he showed when he was there before, and he's shown at Rothes what he's capable of. It was just that Brora, and with the way they're playing as well, I think it was difficult for him to establish himself as a regular, and he should be able to do that for us. And then the final thing I'll say about this game is that Willie West keeps racking up the landmarks. That's 700 appearances now, so he's the records, obviously club records, Billy Gordon 721, so he's sort of chasing that down. And whether
surely.
Well, he's signed on for next season, so it's only
the bicentennial man, that's who he is.
It's only really injury that could stop him potentially, and whether it's this season or next season, I think he'll get there. It is, and I mean, it could be this season if they do well enough in this cup and the Shield or the Scottish Cup, they'll play enough games that he should get there.
Yeah. Can I just do one last defence for why the goal should have stayed?
Coming back to this?
Oh, definitely. Who had the best view of that incident?
The linesman.
And who said there was no foul?
The linesman.
Defence rest.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We want 1,000, Willie. Anyway, let's move on. Huntly 5, Wick Academy 2. Huntly also winning ahead of the Aberdeenshire Cup final this weekend that they're also involved in. Kyle Henderson, free kick, opening scoring for Wick. Ryan Sewell equalised. Then Mark McGregor had Wick back in front, but an Angus Grant free kick levelled it up after the break. Alex Thoyers, Michael Clark and Sam Robertson all stretched Huntly's lead. Alex Thoyers, that was a big impact for a guy who hadn't played since, what, January?
Can I say, first of all, with this game, I haven't seen any footage, so if anybody's got footage, please send it in, because the goals in this game, Kyle Henderson's free kick, having seen him score free kicks before, you know it'll be an absolute belter. Angus Grant's free kick sounded very good as well, and Thoyer's goal was described as a 35-yard blaster by somebody to me, so I would like to see all of them, but unfortunately we don't have the footage. But in terms of your mentioning Alex Thoyers, for not playing since January, to come on, and the scoreline's probably deceptive, because it was 2-2 until 5-6 minutes to go, and he scored, and then Huntly sort of added a couple right at the end. But to come on, it's sort of dream comeback for him, and I know he's a sort of player coach now, but he's maybe hoping to just put himself in the frame for this cup final. Guys that can score for that sort of, that can score for that sort of range could be invaluable.
What was his injury?
I'm not entirely. I think it was osteitis pubis that he's been bothered with, but I could be wrong. So if I am, I apologise. But he's been sidelined obviously for a while, and some impact. I think for Wick, it's just sort of sums up perhaps their, maybe luck's the wrong word, but things aren't going for them. Like, they've been in front twice, they've played pretty well, and going into the last 10 minutes at 2-2 even, it's the game's right and ties right in the balance, and then Gary Manson's probably coming out at the end of the 90 minutes going, how have we ended up getting beat 5-2, and like the scoreline looks a lot worse than Wick's performance was, I think, and that's unfortunately the way it's going for them just now. And I'm sure they'll be glad that that'll be the last time they visit Christie Park this season, because between League Cup, League and Scottish Cup, they've been down 3 times and lost all 3.
Okay, 2 more to discuss, I think, by my count. Hopefully, maybe it's 3.
3, it's 3.
It's 3. 3. Okay, we'll start with Keith 0, Brora Rangers 5. All goals in the first half in this one. It's called Going Nap. Let's Going Nap. 5 generally is Going Nap. But Andrew McLeod, building on what was a sensational performance in front of the cameras against Banks of D for Brora, with his first senior hat-trick in this game. He's a cracking player, isn't he? On loan from Ross County.
I would say he's an SPFL player that's playing in the Highland League, to be honest with you, and I think after this season I don't think we'll see him playing Highland League football again. I just think now that he's sort of had a wee run of games as well for Brora, he's really found his feet, and in terms of sort of physicality, athleticism, quality on the ball, whether it's dribbling, passing, finishing, he's got the lot really, and he showed that on Saturday with his hat-trick. And I think it's fair to say that Brora's defeat to Keith in the league back in August was maybe still in their minds a wee bit on Saturday with the way they played. It was pretty ruthless, clinical stuff all round really, and exactly what they were after. And I mean, they're going well in the league, they've won a cup already, they just want to sort of keep pushing on as many fronts as possible, and they've done the job well getting through. The other side of it for Keith, I mean, Craig Ewan's made I think 8 changes to his team to give boys an opportunity who maybe haven't had it, and maybe try out a few things, and it hasn't gone as they would have hoped. And give credit to Brora, they were good, but by the same token, I think Keith would be very disappointed because they were below what they would expect. And even it's 5 goals in the first half, and you watch them, and 2 of them are sort of pretty easy headers for corners, and it's like you can't afford to do that against anyone, never mind a team with the potency of Brora.
Michael Finnis and Shane Sutherland with the other goals for the Catacks. Baptism of fire for those Keith youngsters.
Very much so. I'm with Callum. When I saw this scoreline, the first thing that came through my head is, oh, that's Brora looking to perhaps make a point after their very disappointing league defeat to the Maroons earlier in the season, and they've certainly done that. They've gone to Kenneth Park and just romped it by half time. It's like, okay, job done, we can maybe rest a few guys, get a few boys off, and on to the next one.
Yeah, Keith had obviously cut the grass. News just in. While we've been recording, there's been an announcement about a swap deal between Brora Rangers and Clattencullen for a player each. Callum, do you want to tell us the latest?
Aye, well, they are maybe not calling it a swap deal, but I will, because that's what it is. But Andy McRae has left Brora to go to Clark, and Connor Bunce has gone in the other direction, which I think it's a move that's probably been brewing for a wee while, and I think it's probably a good move for all parties really, because Andy McRae, I know, has been a bit frustrated over the last year or so at his sort of lack of game time or lack of starts, and I think he's sort of felt he would like a fresh start somewhere else. You know, he's had 5 years at Brora and he's done very well. They've won leagues, cups. He was Highland League Player of the Year one season, so he's done well for Brora, and you know, I think Brora's done well for him as well in terms of the platform it's given him. But I know he's sort of been keen on that, and maybe a fresh start. And you would expect, perhaps not knocking Clark's squad, but you'd expect he might play or start more regularly at Clark than he has been at Brora of late. And looking at it the other way, Brora, I know Connor Bunce is somebody that a few teams have admired for a while now, and he started particularly well this season. I think he's got 13 goals perhaps now this season, and he's somebody who can sort of play in a variety of attacking positions, and he'll come in again to Brora's squad and add good competition. Jordan McRae's out, but when you think they've got Shane Sutherland, Connor Bunce now, Tony Dingwall, George Robiston, James Wallace, Mark Ewan, in those sort of to play in those front 4 positions. Ali Sutherland could even, although he's been playing deeper, he could go back in there and play there. Craig McKenzie, Andrew McLeod as well. They've a lot of good options, and it's a move I think overall it makes sense, and everyone at the moment anyway seems pretty happy with how it's working out for them.
Good. Like a happy ending on Highland League Weekly. Okay, Lossiemouth 1, Devon Vale 4. Now Ben Hermiston and James Leslie exchanged goals in this one. Then Lossie, they wanted a penalty on 40 minutes. That penalty wasn't given. Vale then went straight up the pitch and scored through Keane Matheson. And in the aftermath, Liam Archibald of Lossie, normally the captain but wasn't wearing the armband on Saturday due to James Leslie wearing it for his final game.
Before he goes away to Japan,
yes,
for a couple of months.
Well, Liam Archibald was sent off for his protests, although we'll come on to that. Well, it wasn't really a protest.
Can I just dive in two-footed here and say that this is an absolute howler of a decision. A complete and utter, I just can't understand why the referee even needs to get involved. Well, the footage I've been sent is very grainy, but we'll just put it on screen anyway, I think, to show the viewers, because the aftermath of the goal, and I think Liam Archibald had gone down with the penalty, and whether it was a penalty, I think he was maybe playing for it slightly, and Harry Noble, who used to play for Lossy, Vale captain, I think, he's run past Liam Archibald, sort of put his arm round him, had a word in his ear, and Liam Archibald's just sort of patted him on the back, and Harry Noble's run away, and Owen Lawrence, the referee, even if it's in the rule book, I don't understand the need to get involved. The incident was done, and actually sending Liam Archibald off sort of created more of a melee afterwards between both teams. Like,
yeah, not ridiculous.
I can't fathom it. And if I'm wrong, if people want to tell me I'm wrong, then fire on. But I just genuinely, when I saw it, I was astounded that was what he was sent off for. And the bottom line is, I think, and I'll come on to Devon Vale because we're doing them a disservice, but the bottom line is that's a huge decision at a key point in the game, and Lossy then have to play 50 minutes with 10 men, and realistically, at that moment, your chance of getting through goes down the drain, basically. I don't understand. I'm going round in circles here, but I don't understand why there was any need to ever get involved. Like, it was Harry Noble winding up Liam Archibald, and he's just sort of brushed him off, and it was done. But there we are. But going on to Devon Vale's performance, I think, aside from the red card, that goal, the second goal, is a big moment as well, in that although they wanted the penalty, Lossy should defend the counter a lot better. It's too easy for Keane Matheson to just sort of make the run he made and tap it in, and that'll disappoint them. But then give Vale credit, I thought they scored some very good goals. Oleg Douglos's was a really good finish, and you'll like Jack Mitchell's as well. It's a wee sort of flick similar to the one we hit Strathspey the other week. You were salivating about that, so they were good, and Jack Mitchell created the first for Ben Hermiston, so I thought he was good again. And that's after losing at Keith for Devon Vale, that's a very good week in terms of they won at Banks of D. That's 2 cup quarter-finals for them to look forward to now, and it's been 13 years since Vale lifted a trophy, so if they could get themselves, at least, obviously they're wanting both, and we don't know the draw for this cup yet, but if they could get themselves into a semi-final, then you never know, and there's no question, I think, this season that they're going the right way.
Yeah, Gary Wood or Gary Silver, Paul. Anyways, sorry. Final game to discuss. Rothes 1, Fermartin United 8. Now, this one, great for Fermartin. Ronnie Sharp, the new Rothes manager, potentially seeing what he's up against. Robert Ward got 4 for Fermartin, so a great afternoon for him. Taylor Thane got 2 as well, went into his own net, so not the best afternoon for him. But yeah, you're kind of seeing both sides of things here in this game, aren't you?
Well, the first thing, and maybe I shouldn't share this, but I will, because it's quite
amusing, that too.
Quite dark humour, is that the Tannoy announcer at McKessick Park on Saturday, who's our former, he still covers games for us, former Highland League correspondent at the P&J, Dave Edwards, and now I'm told he announced the second goal is with his second of the afternoon, Taylor Thane, which for an own goal I think was
kicking him when he's down,
quite humorous. But aside from that, in terms of the actual game, I think Ronnie Sharp's quotes afterwards were quite telling, in that even though they were sort of 3-0 or 3-1 down, he felt for an hour he was sort of encouraged by the performance and reasonably happy with what he was seeing. But then in the last half an hour, the roof has really sort of fallen in. And I mean, the one thing for Rothes perhaps is maybe it's better it happened in a cup game than in the league. But that perhaps shows like a few things that Ronnie will need to try and address pretty quickly, because it's just, basically the game like ran away with them totally. And at 3-1, when they'd scored to make it 3-1, they were potentially could have come back into it and maybe put Martin under a wee bit of pressure, but obviously that hasn't happened. And I think what would be frustrating for Rothes as well is they won last week, and even if they could have followed that up with a good solid 90-minute performance, whether they got through or not, if they'd played well over 90 minutes again, it sort of keeps the positivity and gives you something to build on, but that hasn't quite happened. But give credit to Martin. I mean, that's 2 visits to McKessick Park this season and they've scored 18 goals, so I think they'd maybe want to play there every week. It's maybe the happy hunting ground. And Robert Ward with 4 goals, player that's proven at the level with Inverurie and Turriff coming in on loan for Peterhead, looks, good bit of business. Another player that a lot of clubs were keen on when he sort of became available for loan, so for Martin, I'll be pleased to have him and pleased that he can be as devastating as he was on Saturday.
Yep. Okay, then that's all of the R. Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup first round ties covered. Then we'll find out the draw for the second round of the competition on Tuesday, which is tomorrow as we record. So we can't quite provide you that information yet because we can't tell the future, unfortunately. That's it then for this.
How was I sitting?
Sorry. That's it then for this YouTube version of our Highland League Weekly results panel. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, we'll be back next week with another one. However, if you'd rather watch the full Highland League Weekly show, and this is the week to become a Press and Journal subscriber for the low price of £1 for your first 3 months, because it's a bumper edition of Highland League Weekly over on the P&J website. Next Monday we'll be filming 3 games this weekend, including the Evening Express Aberdeenshire Cup final from Harlaw Park between Huntly and Bankside on Sunday. Until we see you next, you can keep up to date with all of our Highland League and Highland League Weekly content from the Press and Journal via 2 avenues. You can follow us on our various social media channels at X, Facebook, TikTok, places like that. You can also sign up to our Highland League newsletter. There's a link to do that below the video as well. Yes, until we see you next, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.